The blue lights appear in your rearview mirror, and your heart immediately drops into your stomach. You didn't see them coming, didn't hear the siren until just now, but there they are, flashing insistently, demanding your attention. Your mind races, trying to replay the last few minutes of driving. Was I speeding? Did I roll through that stop sign? You pull over, your hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly, and watch in the mirror as the officer approaches. The tension is palpable. He asks for your license and registration, which you fumble to provide, and then, as he hands them back, he drops the line that so many of us have heard or will hear at some point. The reason I stopped you is that we got a call about a vehicle matching your description. And just like that, the entire dynamic shifts. It's no longer about a clear violation they witnessed. It's about a report, an anonymous tip, a vague description. And that is where so many people make their first and most critical mistake. So here's the question I want to pose to you right now, before we go any further. What was the very first thing you said when a police officer told you they stopped you because of a call or a report? Did you immediately start explaining yourself, apologizing, or trying to figure out who might have called? I really want to know, because your answer to that question might reveal exactly where you went wrong, or, hopefully, where you got it right. Drop your experience in the comments below. Your story could be the cautionary tale or the success story that helps someone else in a similar situation. Stick around, because what I'm about to share with you could completely change how you handle your next encounter, and it all starts with understanding a few key things the police are not required to tell you. When those words, "we got a call," are spoken, most drivers immediately default into a state of anxiety and a desperate need to prove their innocence. You want to explain that you weren't swerving, that you didn't do anything wrong, that the caller must have been mistaken or even malicious. You might be tempted to say, "I wasn't doing anything. Who called? What did they say?" But you need to understand something fundamental about this scenario. You are now a suspect in an investigation, and the officer is looking for evidence to confirm the caller's story. They are not your friend. They are not a neutral mediator. Their job is to gather information, and you are the primary source. When you start offering details, explanations, and denials without being asked, you are doing their work for them, often to your own detriment. Here's the reality that most people don't want to hear. The call itself is often based on very little. It could be a neighbor who misidentified you, a road rage incident where the other driver exaggerated your driving, or a completely anonymous tip from someone with a grudge. But in the eyes of the law, that call can be enough to give the officer what is called reasonable suspicion to stop you. It doesn't have to be accurate, and it doesn't have to be true. It just has to be enough for a reasonable officer to suspect that something might be wrong. Courts have upheld traffic stops based on calls from identified citizens, and in many cases, even anonymous tips can be enough if the caller provided detailed information that the officer could corroborate, like your car's make, model, color, and license plate. The caller could be a professional firefighter or just a concerned citizen who gave their name, making them seem credible and reliable to the courts. They don't have to be right, they just have to sound believable. And in that moment, you are the one who has to deal with the consequences of their call. The officer's job is to turn that anonymous tip or vague report into a solid case, or at least into a traffic ticket. They are trained to observe you for signs of nervousness, intoxication, or deception. They're watching your hands, listening to your speech, looking for anything that might corroborate the call they received. When you start babbling about where you were going or how you couldn't possibly have been speeding because you were just at your friend's house, you're giving them that ammunition. You're creating a narrative that they can later dissect, question, and potentially use against you in court. If you say, "I didn't have a drink tonight," and the officer smells a hint of mouthwash or an old beer can in the back of your car, they can note your denial and use it to bolster a suspicion of DUI. The moment you start your story, you open the door for the officer to pick it apart. They can and will note every inconsistency, every hesitation, every small detail you mention that might not perfectly match what the caller reported. So, what should you do? What do you say? The answer is a phrase that many people are afraid to use because they think it makes them look guilty. "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to speak to an attorney." But don't just blurt it out the moment the officer approaches. The key to a successful interaction is to be polite, cooperative, and non-confrontational while simultaneously protecting your rights. Here's the strategy. Hand over your license, registration, and proof of insurance as requested. That is the law. You are required to identify yourself and provide those documents. When the officer starts asking questions, that's when you need to be careful. Let's run through a realistic scenario. You've pulled over. The officer approaches your window. You've got your hands on the steering wheel, the interior light is on if it's dark, and you're calm. "Officer, Good evening. The reason I stopped you is that we received a call about a silver sedan that was swerving all over the road on Main Street. Is that you? You. Good evening, officer. Here is my license and registration. Officer. So where are you coming from tonight? This is the classic fishing expedition. They aren't just making conversation. They want to see if your story matches the callers or if they can catch you in a lie. You. I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to speak to an attorney. This statement is powerful. It immediately stops the officer's interrogation because they know that the legal consequences of continuing to question you after you've invoked your rights are severe. But here's what happens next. Often, the officer will try to push past it. They'll say something like, "Oh, I'm just asking a simple question. Are you saying you won't answer my questions?" The key is to remain calm and simply repeat the phrase, "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to speak to an attorney." Do not engage in a debate. Do not feel pressured to explain why you are asserting your rights. You have the right to remain silent, and you do not have to justify exercising it. If you feel you need to say something else, you can ask, "Am I free to go?" or "Am I being detained?" This is a crucial question. If the officer says, "No, you're free to go," you can roll up your window and leave, safely and carefully. If they say, "Yes, you're being detained," you know you are the subject of an investigation, and you should absolutely not answer any more questions without an attorney. Now, let's talk about what happens when the officer starts asking you questions directly related to the call. Were you just on Main Street? Do you know why someone might have called about your driving? These are not friendly queries. They are designed to elicit a statement that they can use against you. When you're nervous, it's human nature to want to talk. Silence feels awkward. You might think that explaining the situation will make the officer understand and let you go. This is the most common and most dangerous mistake. The officer is not there to decide if you're a good person or a bad person. They are there to collect evidence. Every word you say is a piece of that evidence, and they are experts at shaping it to fit their narrative. There is no such thing as an innocent explanation at a traffic stop. Even if you start with, "I think I know what this is about, but it's a big misunderstanding." You've just admitted to a problem, and now the officer's job is to build a case around it. Consider another common tactic. The officer holds your documents for a very long time. This is often a deliberate strategy to increase your anxiety. While you sit there feeling trapped and exposed, they are back in their car, running your information, and more importantly, giving you time to get nervous. The silence builds, and you start to worry. Will they find something? Do they think I did something wrong? When the officer finally returns, they often try to use your anxious state to get you to talk. Maybe they'll say, "You seem nervous. Why is that?" Or, "Is there something in the car I should know about?" This is a psychological test. They are hoping that your nervousness will make you more likely to admit to something minor, which they can then use to justify a further search. For example, you might say, "I'm just nervous because I have a little bit of medical marijuana in the car, but I have a card." Now, they have a reason to ask you to step out, to search the car, and potentially to find something else that they weren't even looking for originally. Then there's the step out of the vehicle request. In many jurisdictions, an officer can order you out of the car for safety reasons during a traffic stop, even if they don't have a warrant or even probable cause to arrest you. This is a well-established rule. But once you're out of the car, you're at a disadvantage. You're now standing on the side of the road, often in a vulnerable position. The officer might ask you to perform field sobriety tests, even if the original stop was just about a report of erratic driving. They might look into your car through the open door. This is a major escalation, and you must be prepared for it. If you've already invoked your right to remain silent, you can state, "Officer, I don't feel comfortable answering questions without my attorney present." You don't have to perform a field sobriety test if you are not under arrest, but you should know that the consequences of refusing can be complex. The best defense here is to have already stopped the conversation before it escalated to this point. The real danger with the "we got a call" line is that it allows the officer to bypass the need for a real, observable traffic violation. If you're pulled over for a broken taillight, you have a specific, concrete reason for the stop. But a call is intangible. It's based on someone else's word, and it can be used as an excuse to stop almost anyone. The officer can stop you, grill you, and then, if they find nothing, they can let you go and simply say they checked it out. You'll feel relieved, but you'll have no recourse. You won't know who called or what they said, and the whole encounter will be a blur of stress and confusion. This is exactly the system many people think is unjust, but it is perfectly legal. The only way to protect yourself is to control what you can control. your own words and actions. Remember, exercising your rights is not an admission of guilt. It is the opposite. It is the action of someone who understands the system and refuses to be a victim of it. The police are not expecting you to know your rights. They are trained to deal with people who are cooperative, nervous, and willing to talk. When you calmly and politely assert your rights, you are disrupting their standard procedure. They may become frustrated. They may try to pressure you. They might say things like, "Well, if you have nothing to hide, why won't you answer a few simple questions?" This is a common and highly effective intimidation tactic. They are trying to make you feel like a criminal for asserting your constitutional protections. But remember, you have nothing to gain from answering questions and everything to lose. The simple truth is that the law doesn't require you to help the police build a case against you. Your silence is your shield. Let the officer do their job based on the evidence they have, not the words you give them. The conversation that follows these words is a high-stakes game. Some officers will accept your invocation of rights and handle the stop efficiently, perhaps issuing a warning or a ticket based on the call or their observations. Others may not. They might continue to pressure you, hoping to get you to slip up. They might try to appeal to your sense of fairness or reason, but you must remain steadfast. Do not engage. Simply repeat the line like a broken record if necessary. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to be their friend. You just need to get out of that situation with your rights intact. There is a widespread myth that if you just tell the truth, everything will be okay. But truth is subjective. What you consider a minor detail might be a crucial piece of evidence to the officer. You might think you're being helpful by explaining you were just going to pick up your kids from school, but this gives the officer a timeline to check. Did the call come in at 3:15 and you were at the school at 3:20? They might use this to ask follow-up questions about your speed or route. The best rule of thumb is to treat every question as a potential trap. Answer only the legal and required questions. Identify yourself, provide your documents. For everything else, invoke your rights. It is not rude, it is not aggressive, it is simply the law. Another tactic police sometimes use is to bring a passenger into the conversation. If you have a passenger, the officer might ask them a similar series of questions. This can be incredibly stressful because you want to protect your friend or family member, but the same rules apply to them. They have the same right to remain silent. They are not required to answer questions either. If the officer starts questioning your passenger, you can advise them, politely, that they don't have to answer. But be careful, this can be seen as obstruction if done in a confrontational way. It is usually best to let the passenger handle their own rights, but you can set the tone by invoking your own rights calmly, which can give them the courage to do the same. Let's also consider the possibility that the officer will simply ignore your invocation of your right to remain silent and continue to ask questions. This is a violation of your rights. If this happens, the best thing to do is to stop talking entirely. You don't need to repeat yourself, just remain silent. Your silence is your protest and your protection. This can be incredibly difficult because the silence becomes awkward and the pressure builds. You might feel like you have to say something to break the tension. Don't. The tension is a tactic. Let the officer be the one who has to fill the silence. When you finally get out of the car and the encounter is over, you can then consult with an attorney about the violation of your rights. One of the most misunderstood aspects of traffic stops is the vehicle search. Many people believe that an officer needs a warrant or your permission to search your car. That's not always the case. Under the law, an officer can search your vehicle without your consent if they have probable cause to believe that it contains evidence of a crime. The "we got a call" scenario is often used to create that probable cause. For instance, if the caller said you were swerving, the officer might smell alcohol on your breath and then claim probable cause to search the car for an open container. This is a classic move. Your refusal to consent to a search is a critical protection. You should always state, "Officer, I do not consent to a search." This may not prevent the search if the officer has probable cause, but it preserves your right to challenge the legality of the search in court later. If you consent, you've given up that right entirely. So let's put it all together. You've been pulled over because of a call. What do you do? First, pull over safely and calmly. Turn on your interior light. Keep your hands visible on the wheel. When the officer asks for your license, registration, and insurance, provide them. When the officer starts asking questions, don't answer them. Politely and clearly state, "Officer, I am invoking my right to remain silent and my right to speak to an attorney." If they press you, repeat it. If they ask you to step out, do so, but continue to assert your right to remain silent. If they ask you to consent to a search, say, "I do not consent to a search." Do not argue. Do not resist arrest if it comes to that. Anything you do that is physically confrontational will only escalate the situation. increase your charges, and put you in danger. Once the encounter is over, consult with an attorney to discuss the specifics of your stop, including the validity of the call and the officer's conduct. It may have been a violation of your Fourth Amendment rights, but you need to preserve the evidence by not incriminating yourself during the stop. Ultimately, the line, "We got a call," is designed to put you on the defensive and to make you think that you have to prove your innocence. But that is not how our system of justice is supposed to work. You are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The burden of proof is on the state, not on you. By talking, you are shifting that burden to yourself. By staying silent, you are forcing the police to do their job and gather real, tangible evidence that proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt, rather than relying on your nervous words. This is a powerful shift in perspective. Most people approach a traffic stop as if they are guilty and need to prove otherwise. The smart driver approaches a traffic stop as an innocent citizen exercising their rights. The officer is a professional doing a job, and you are a citizen protecting yourself from the overreach of that job. It's not about being anti-police, it's about being pro-knowledge and pro-rights. The legal landscape is complex, and the rules that govern police interaction are often nuanced and favorable to the officer. That's why you must take every possible measure to protect yourself. Next time you see those blue lights, don't panic. Take a breath. Remember that the line, "We got a call," is a trigger. It's a red flag. It should tell you that this is not a stop based on a clear traffic violation you committed, but rather an investigation. And in an investigation, silence is golden. You are not on trial. You are not required to be a witness against yourself. You are simply required to provide your identification and to endure the stop until the officer decides to let you go. Everything else is a choice, and making the right choice can save you from a nightmare in court. The reality is that many drivers, through sheer nervousness or a misguided desire to be helpful, turn a minor inconvenience into a serious legal problem. They talk themselves into a DUI arrest, a drug charge, or a false accusation. They give the officer the words they need to build a case, even when they've done nothing wrong. The system is designed to exploit that human tendency to explain. It's a classic psychological tactic, and the only way to beat it is to understand it and refuse to play the game. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been pulled over with this exact scenario? What did you do? Did you talk your way out of it, or did you talk your way into trouble? The comment section is a powerful place to learn from each other. Share your story, whether it was a victory for your rights or a lesson learned the hard way. Your experience could be the cautionary tale that sticks in someone else's mind the next time they see those flashing lights in their rearview mirror. Remember, knowledge is the first line of defense, and community support is the second. Let's learn from each other. The key to navigating these situations is preparation and a clear head, and that comes from understanding the rules of the game. So tell me, what's your experience been?